The zip ties cut deep into Dr. Mikhail Volkov's wrists as the SEALs dragged him from the basement cell. Blood caked his face, his clothes torn from 2 weeks of Taliban interrogation. Commander Jake Reaper, Mitchell barely glanced at him. Just another hostile prisoner to process, probably a Russian advisor to the Taliban. Then the IED exploded. Mitchell was thrown 15 feet, shrapnel shredding his throat, blood spurting in arterial rhythms. The corpseman was already dead. In 12 seconds, their commander would bleed out. That's when the prisoner did something impossible. Mikhail dislocated his own thumb, slipped the zip ties, and dove toward Mitchell. The SEALs almost shot him, until they saw his hands working with surgical precision, clamping the severed artery with nothing but his fingers and a piece of wire from the ground. "I'm a doctor," he gasped in accented English, his fingers literally holding Mitchell's life inside his throat. "Red Cross mission, captured 16 days ago. Please, let me save him." The SEALs had a choice: trust a potential enemy or watch their commander die. What happened next would become the most controversial and miraculous battlefield rescue in special operations history. Because the man they'd zip-tied and beaten wasn't a Taliban collaborator. He was one of the world's leading trauma surgeons, and he was about to perform impossible surgery in a Taliban kill zone with SEAL guns pointed at his head. "You have 3 minutes before he dies," Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez said, pressing his pistol against Mikhail's temple. "If he dies, you die." Mikhail never even blinked. "Then you'd better stop shaking that gun and help me, or we'll both watch him die. This incredible true story will restore your faith in humanity." Subscribe for more unbelievable tales of survival. Thumbs up, smash the like if you believe enemies can become heroes. Speech balloon comment: would you trust an enemy to save your life? Bell, hit the bell. These stories drop every week and will leave you speechless. The Hindu Kush Mountains of Afghanistan, September 2019. SEAL Team 7 had been hunting a high-value target for 6 weeks. Hakim al-Rashidi, Taliban commander responsible for killing 37 coalition soldiers. Intelligence finally placed him in a compound near the Pakistan border, and Commander Jake Mitchell was leading the assault personally. Mitchell was a legend in the special operations community. 6'3", built like a linebacker, with more confirmed missions than any active SEAL commander. His call sign, Reaper, wasn't given lightly. When Mitchell came for you, death followed. The raid began at 0300. For helicopters inserted 2 SEAL squads into the valley, approaching the compound from multiple vectors. Mitchell led Alpha Squad through the main approach, while Bravo circled to cut off escape routes. "Reaper, this is Overwatch," came the voice in his earpiece. "Thermal shows minimum 20 fighters, possible civilians in the basement." "Copy. ROE is cleared hot. Anyone with a weapon dies." They breached the compound with textbook precision. Flashbangs, room clearing, controlled violence. The Taliban fighters were ready but outmatched. In 4 minutes, 17 were dead, 3 captured, but al-Rashidi wasn't there. "Sir, basement secured," Chief Rodriguez reported. "We've got something weird." Mitchell descended into the basement, finding a makeshift prison. 3 cells, 2 empty. In the third, a man sat chained to the wall, Caucasian, maybe 40, beard grown wild, clothes that might once have been expensive now reduced to rags. He'd clearly been tortured. Fingers broken, burns on his arms, one eye swollen shut. "Russian?" Mitchell asked in English. The man looked up with his good eye but said nothing. "Check him for weapons. Zip-tie him. Bring him up," Mitchell ordered. Probably one of their advisors who pissed someone off. Dr. Mikhail Volkov had been with the International Red Cross medical mission when the Taliban ambushed their convoy 16 days ago. A renowned trauma surgeon from Prague, he'd volunteered to work in Afghanistan's most dangerous regions, setting up surgical centers for civilians caught in the crossfire. The Taliban had taken him for 2 reasons. First, to treat their wounded, and second, because they confused him with a Russian military advisor they'd heard was in the area. For 2 weeks, they tortured him for information he didn't have. When he'd refused to provide intel on coalition forces, intel he genuinely didn't possess, they'd broken his fingers one by one. Still, they kept him alive because even with broken fingers, he was the best doctor they had access to. Now, as the SEALs dragged him up the stairs, Mikhail tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. The beating he'd taken that morning for refusing to operate on a Taliban bombmaker had left him barely conscious. Alpha, Bravo, exfil in 5, Mitchell commanded. We've got a dry hole, but maybe the prisoner knows something. They were moving toward the extraction point when Rodriguez noticed something. Sir, the prisoner's trying to say something. Mitchell turned to see Mikhail frantically gesturing with his bound hands, trying to point at the ground ahead. Shut him up, Mitchell ordered. But Mikhail became more agitated, actually throwing himself forward despite the zip ties. IED, he finally managed to croak in English. Wire there! Mitchell held up a fist, stopping the patrol. He looked where Mikhail was pointing and saw it. A barely visible tripwire across their path, probably connected to a daisy chain of IEDs. Yodi, get up here, Mitchell called. As the explosive ordnance disposal specialist examined the wire, he whistled low. Commander, this would have taken out half the squad. How did the prisoner? I saw them plant it, Mikhail gasped. Yesterday. Please. I'm doctor. Not enemy. Mitchell studied him with new interest. You speak English. Czech citizen. Red Cross. Captured 16 days ago. Bullshit. Red Cross would have reported. They killed everyone else, Mikhail interrupted. Kept me to treat wounded. Please, check with Geneva. Dr. Mikhail Volkov. Prague General Hospital. Mitchell made a decision. Rodriguez, call it in. Verify his story. Until then, he stays tied. They alter their route, avoiding the IED. As they moved through a narrow canyon toward the extraction point, Mikhail noticed something else, the Taliban's counter-assault pattern. He'd watched them train for 2 weeks, heard their plans. Commander, he called out urgently. They'll ambush at the canyon exit. Always do. Rockets from the ridge. Mitchell hesitated. The prisoner could be leading them into a trap, or he could be trying to help. Every instinct said not to trust him, but something in the man's eyes, desperation mixed with genuine concern, made him pause. Overwatch, scan the ridge at grid 247.831, Mitchell ordered. Stand by. Reaper, we've got heat signatures. For maybe 5 fighters with what looks like RPG tubes. Mitchell looked at Mikhail with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. How did you know? Listen to them plan for 2 weeks, Mikhail replied. They thought I don't speak Pashto. I do, learned in Kandahar treating civilians. Mitchell ordered an alternate route, calling in an airstrike on the ambush position. As they moved, he walked beside Mikhail. If you're really a doctor, prove it. Your man. Third from front, Mikhail said, observing the squad. Walking with slight limp, favoring left knee. Probably torn MCL. Compensating will damage ACL within month. Man behind him. Check for diabetes. Skin coloration suggests poor circulation. Your point man has untreated fracture in right hand, probably 4th metacarpal. Mitchell was stunned. Even in the darkness, beaten and bound, this prisoner had diagnosed his men just by watching them walk. They were 300 meters from the extraction point when it happened. Later analysis would show the IED was command detonated, triggered when the Taliban realized their primary ambush had failed. The explosion caught Mitchell perfectly, not enough to kill instantly, but enough to ensure a slow, agonizing death. The commander was thrown against a rock face, the impact shattering his shoulder. But worse was the shrapnel. A piece of metal the size of a pencil had torn through his throat, severing his carotid artery and damaging his trachea. Blood sprayed in pressured arcs with each heartbeat. Medic! Rodriguez screamed, but Corpsman Davis was already down, killed instantly by the blast. Mitchell clutched his throat, blood pouring between his fingers. His team formed a protective circle, but everyone knew the truth. Without immediate surgical intervention, their commander had maybe 60 seconds. That's when Mikhail acted. In one fluid motion that seemed impossible for someone who'd been tortured for 2 weeks, Mikhail dislocated his left thumb, a trick he'd learned from an escape artist patient years ago, and slipped the zip ties. Before anyone could react, he was at Mitchell's side, his broken fingers somehow steady as he assessed the wound. Back off! Rodriguez shoved his pistol against Mikhail's head. Don't touch him! He's dying! Mikhail shot back, never taking his eyes off Mitchell's neck. Carotid is severed, trachea compromised. Without surgery, he's dead in 40 seconds. I can save him, but you need to decide now. Mitchell's eyes were already glazing, his blood pressure dropping catastrophically. Rodriguez had to make the hardest decision of his career: trust a potential enemy or watch his commander die. If he dies, I die. Yes, I heard you, Mikhail interrupted. Now shut up and help me, or we're both watching him die. Mikhail's broken fingers shouldn't have been able to function, but muscle memory and adrenaline overcame the pain. He tore open Mitchell's medical kit, finding basic supplies, nothing close to what he needed. I need metal wire, any gauge, sanitized with alcohol from the radio batteries. He barked orders like he was in his operating room in Prague. Someone's bootlace, pulled to just the thread core. Knife, sharpest you have, flame sterilize it. Now. The SEALs scrambled to comply. Mikhail worked with impossible speed, his fingers finding the severed artery by touch in the pool of blood. The spurting stopped as he pinched it manually, but that was just buying seconds. Tracheotomy first, he muttered, taking the offered knife. Without hesitation, he made an incision below the laryngeal damage, inserting the barrel of a disassembled pen to maintain an airway. Mitchell's labored breathing immediately improved, but the carotid was the real problem. In a hospital, this would require vascular surgery, microscopes, a full surgical team. Here, Mikhail had field supplies and Taliban fighters likely approaching. Light, I need focused light, he demanded. 3 tactical flashlights converged on the wound. What Mikhail saw would have made most surgeons give up. The artery wasn't just severed, it was shredded, a 3-centimeter section damaged beyond simple repair. He needs a graft, Mikhail said, his mind racing. The saphenous vein from his leg could work, but I'd need, he stopped, struck by desperate inspiration. Your 4 tubing, what's it made of? Medical-grade polyurethane, Petty Officer Santos replied. Diameter, 3 millimeter internal. Close enough. Cut me exactly 4 centimeters, clean cut, no fraying. What Mikhail did next would later be studied in medical schools as impossible field surgery that shouldn't have worked. He created a bypass using the 4 tubing as an artificial vessel, suturing it to the intact portions of the carotid with the bootlace thread, using techniques he developed treating landmine victims in Bosnia decades ago. This won't hold long, he warned, his broken fingers trembling as he tied sutures smaller than rice grains. Maybe 2 hours before it fails. He needs real surgery. Nearest surgical unit is 90 minutes, Rodriguez said, watching in awe as Mitchell's color improved slightly. Then we better hurry. Mikhail was already working on secondary wounds, packing lacerations with combat gauze. Who's your fastest runner? Johnson. Why? He has type O negative blood. I can smell it. Metabolic markers. Your commander is O negative too, losing blood faster than we can replace. Direct transfusion now. As Johnson lay beside Mitchell for an improvised blood transfusion, Mikhail managed the impossible, keeping Mitchell stable with field equipment while simultaneously directing the SEALs in combat medical procedures. Contact front, someone shouted. Muzzle flashes erupted from the hillside as Taliban fighters found them. The SEALs returned fire while Mikhail worked, bullets cracking overhead. A round sparked off the rock inches from his head, but his hands never wavered. We need to move, Rodriguez shouted. They're flanking us. 30 more seconds, Mikhail insisted, reinforcing the arterial repair. Move him now and he dies. An RPG exploded 20 meters away, showering them with debris. Mikhail threw his body over Mitchell, protecting the surgical site. Shrapnel tore through his back, but he kept working. You're hit. Santos noticed blood spreading across Mikhail's shirt. Superficial, Mikhail lied, fighting through the pain. Done. We can move him, but carefully. Keep his head elevated 15 degrees. Maintain pressure here, and whatever you do, don't let that tube kink. They loaded Mitchell onto an improvised stretcher. As they moved toward the extraction point under fire, Mikhail ran alongside, one hand maintaining pressure on the commander's neck, the other holding the 4-bag high. The Black Hawk was taking fire as it landed, door gunners laying down suppressive fire. They loaded Mitchell first. Then Mikhail collapsed as soon as he was aboard, his own wounds finally overwhelming him. The prisoner's bleeding out. Santos shouted. Rodriguez had to make another decision. They had 1 medic left, minimal supplies, and 2 critical patients. By all protocols, the commander came first. But this prisoner had just saved Mitchell's life. "Treat them both," Rodriguez ordered. "Do what you can." During the flight, Mikhail drifted in and out of consciousness but kept giving medical instructions. "Watch his blood pressure. Tube might shift if he crashes. Cardiac massage, but gentle. The graft is fragile." When they landed at FOB Chapman, the medical team was waiting. As they wheeled Mitchell away, the lead surgeon looked at Mikhail's field surgery in absolute astonishment. "Who the hell did this? This shouldn't be possible with field equipment." "The prisoner," Rodriguez said, which led to even more confusion. Mikhail grabbed the surgeon's coat with his blood-slicked hand. "Listen, used 4 tubing as carotid graft, bootlace sutures, will fail soon. Need immediate vascular repair. Also check for air embolism, possible pneumothorax from the blast." The surgeon looked at him more carefully. "You're a doctor?" "Mikhail Volkov," he whispered. "Vascular surgeon. Prague. Now please, save him." Mikhail passed out as they wheeled him into surgery. Mikhail woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed, which seemed ironic considering he'd just saved an American commander's life. 2 military police stood guard, and a severe-looking intelligence officer sat beside his bed. "Dr. Volkov," the officer began. "I'm Major Harrison, Defense Intelligence Agency. We need to talk." "Is Commander Mitchell alive?" Mikhail asked immediately. "Thanks to you, yes. The surgeon said your field graft held just long enough. Another 10 minutes and—" Harrison paused. "We verified your identity. The Red Cross confirmed you disappeared with their convoy 16 days ago. They thought you were dead." "The others are dead," Mikhail said quietly. 2 nurses, a driver, our translator. Taliban killed them immediately. Kept me because they thought I was Russian military. Why didn't you identify yourself immediately when our team found you?" Mikhail held up his hands, showing his broken, misshapen fingers. "They broke these one by one when I wouldn't give them information about coalition forces. My throat was damaged from choking. I tried to speak but couldn't. Then your commander nearly died, and speaking became less important than operating." Harrison studied him carefully. "The SEALs say you knew about the IED, predicted the ambush." "How?" 2 weeks as their prisoner," Mikhail explained. "They spoke freely around me, thinking I didn't understand Pashto. I learned their patterns, their tactics. When they brought me to treat their wounded, I memorized the compound layout." "You could have escaped." "Where?" "I'm a Czech doctor in Taliban territory. I'd last maybe an hour. Better to wait for rescue, though I was starting to lose hope." The door opened and Commander Mitchell entered in a wheelchair, his neck heavily bandaged but very much alive. The intelligence officer started to protest, but Mitchell waved him off. "Major, unlock his handcuffs," Mitchell ordered, his voice raspy from the throat injury. "Sir, protocol requires. This man saved my life with broken fingers while being shot at. Unlock the damn handcuffs." As the cuffs came off, Mitchell extended his hand. "I owe you my life. My wife owes you a husband. My kids owe you a father." Mikhail shook his hand carefully. "You would have done the same." "I'm not sure I could have. What you did, the surgeons are calling it a miracle." "Not a miracle," Mikhail corrected. "Just 20 years of battlefield medicine in Bosnia, Chechnya, Syria. You learn to improvise when lives depend on it." Over the next days, as both men recovered, an unusual friendship developed. Mitchell would wheel himself to Mikhail's room, and they talk about everything from surgical techniques to philosophy. The SEALs who threatened to kill Mikhail now took turns visiting, each thanking him personally. Rodriguez was particularly emotional. "I almost shot you. When you slipped those zip ties, I came within a trigger pull of killing you." "You were protecting your commander," Mikhail said. "I understand. In your position, I might have pulled the trigger." The media got wind of the story within a week. Taliban prisoner saves SEAL commander became international news. The Czech government demanded Mikhail's immediate return, while the U.S. military wanted to debrief him extensively about his 2 weeks in Taliban captivity. But the most significant conversation came from Admiral Benjamin Cross, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, who flew in specifically to meet Mikhail. "Dr. Volkov," the admiral began, "what you did goes beyond medical intervention. You gathered intelligence, warned our team about ambushes, and saved one of my best commanders. The Navy wants to award you the Navy Distinguished Public Service Award, our highest civilian honor." "I don't need medals," Mikhail replied. "I need to get back to work. There are civilians in Afghanistan who need medical care." "After what you've been through, you want to stay?" "Admiral, I've seen what war does to innocent people. Your SEALs fight the Taliban. I fight death itself. Different battles, same war." The Admiral made an unexpected offer. "What if you could do both? We're starting a new program, embedding civilian surgeons with special operations units. You provide medical expertise, while we provide security." "Interested." Mikhail thought about the 16 days of torture, the broken fingers that still couldn't fully close, the nightmares that woke him every night. Then he thought about the Afghan children he treated, the lives still waiting to be saved. "On one condition," he said. "I treat everyone, coalition, civilian, even enemy combatants if they're wounded. I'm a doctor first, everything else second." "Agreed," the Admiral said. 6 weeks later, Dr. Mikhail Volkov was back in Afghanistan, this time embedded with SEAL Team 7. Mitchell, recovered enough for limited duty, had specifically requested him. The Czech surgeon, who'd been mistaken for a prisoner, had become an integral part of their operations. His first mission with them was remarkable. When they raided a compound and found wounded Taliban fighters, the SEALs watched in amazement as Mikhail treated them with the same care he'd shown Mitchell. One young fighter, maybe 17, had a sucking chest wound. Mikhail saved his life, then convinced him to provide intelligence that prevented a major attack on a school. "You confuse me, Doc," Rodriguez said after watching this. "These people tortured you and you saved them?" "They're not these people when they're bleeding out," Mikhail replied. "They're just human beings dying. My oath as a doctor doesn't have exemptions for enemy combatants." The Taliban put a bounty on his head, not for killing their fighters, but for saving them. His medical treatment of their wounded was undermining their narrative of American brutality. Some Taliban fighters actually surrendered when wounded, knowing the Czech doctor would treat them. The partnership between Mikhail and Team 7 became legendary. He participated in 47 operations over the next year, saving countless lives on all sides. He developed new techniques for field surgery that were adopted throughout special operations. His ability to predict Taliban tactics, learned during his captivity, saved American lives repeatedly. The most powerful moment came a year later, when the SEALs captured Hakim al-Rashidi, the target they'd been hunting when they found Mikhail. Al-Rashidi had been shot in the stomach during the capture and was dying. "Let him die," one of the younger SEALs said. "He's killed dozens of our guys." Mikhail was already opening his medical kit. "If we let him die, we're no different than him." He operated for 3 hours in a field hospital, saving al-Rashidi's life. The Taliban commander woke up to find the doctor he'd ordered tortured standing over him. "You?" Al-Rashidi whispered in disbelief. "Yes, me," Mikhail replied calmly. "The one your men broke fingers on, one by one. The one you kept in a cage. And now, the one who just saved your life." Al-Rashidi began to cry, not from pain but from shame. His subsequent cooperation with intelligence saved hundreds of lives by revealing planned attacks. When Mikhail finally returned to Prague after 18 months, he carried with him commendations from 12 different countries, but more importantly, letters from soldiers, civilians, and even former enemies whose lives he'd saved. At his farewell ceremony, Commander Mitchell, now fully recovered and back in command, gave a speech that was recorded and played at military medical schools worldwide. "We thought he was a prisoner, broken, defeated, useless. We nearly killed him as an enemy collaborator. Instead, he saved my life with broken fingers and pure determination." Dr. Volkov taught us that courage isn't about carrying a weapon, it's about maintaining your humanity and your mission even when the world breaks you. He showed us that sometimes, the most powerful thing on a battlefield isn't a SEAL with a rifle, but a doctor who refuses to stop saving lives, no matter whose lives they are. Mikhail stood to respond, his fingers now healed but still slightly crooked from the breaks. "You called me a prisoner when you found me. You were right, I was a prisoner, but not of the Taliban. I was a prisoner of my oath as a doctor, bound to save lives regardless of circumstances. That imprisonment is one I accept gladly, because it means that even in humanity's darkest moments, healing is possible. The SEALs gave him a trident pin, the sacred symbol of their brotherhood, never given to outsiders. But they had it modified. Instead of a traditional anchor, it had a caduceus, the medical symbol. "You're not a SEAL," Mitchell said, pinning it on Mikhail's collar. "You're something rarer, a healer who walked through hell and came out still committed to saving lives. Even the lives of those who tortured you." Today, the Volkov Protocol is standard training for all military medical personnel. Treat the wound, not the uniform. His techniques for field surgery are taught worldwide. But his greatest legacy isn't medical, it's the proof that humanity can survive even in war's darkest corners. The Taliban fighter who tortured him, breaking his fingers one by one? 3 years later, that man's son was injured in a car accident near Prague. By pure coincidence, Dr. Volkov was the surgeon on call. He saved the boy's life with the same hands that had been broken by the boy's father. When the father learned who had saved his son, he fell to his knees in the hospital corridor, begging forgiveness. Mikhail helped him stand, saying simply, "I'm a doctor. This is what I do." This true story proves that heroes exist in the most unexpected places. Dr. Volkov showed us that saving lives transcends all boundaries. White heavy checkmark subscribe if you believe in the power of humanity over hatred. Thumbs up, smash the like to honor every medical professional in war zones. Speech balloon comment. Would you save your enemy's life? Bell, share this incredible story. The world needs to know that healers can be warriors too. A true doctor doesn't see uniforms or nationalities, only human beings who need help. Dr. Mikhail Volkov. Next week, another jaw-dropping story of courage when it mattered most.